Welcome to this panel, Palestine Students and the Resistance on Campus. This is going to be a discussion not just about theoretical ideas, but actually a strategy of how we can sustain this student movement and build national and international connections in order to take the movement to its most radical conclusions and to push it further into September and beyond. You know, we're living through one of the highest points of student struggle in the last 10 years, and so we need to think really deeply about our strategy of escalation and how we keep this momentum to continue on into the new academic year and beyond that. So we've got a really amazing panel of student organisers here who've been involved in their campus occupations and encampments over the last year. So yeah, we're going to... Introduce myself. Hi, I'm chairing. I'm Tara. I'm also a student organizer over at SOAS next door with the SOAS Liberated Zone for Gaza. Today, I believe, is day 62. I think 62. But yeah, so let's start off with our panel. We're going to kick off with Kais, who is a student organizer here at UCL. He has been organising with the encampment right next door with UCL Stands for Justice, so yeah.
First of all, welcome to our university. I use that term intentionally, right? It is our university. Without the students, there is no university. So just, yeah, I want to talk a little bit about, how this movement, I guess, has spread and the kind of unique position that we find ourselves in London, in particular, more in general across the UK. We find ourselves in situations where, in contrast to America, where you have police clamping down on student occupations or student encampments, rather, with violent repression from police, literally barging through students. We all saw that video in Colombia, right, where they literally barge through students and then they push them back, tearing down tents. We face a different kind of enemy here, even though it's the same belly of the beast, right? We face a different kind of expression of that repression. Here, it's more bureaucratic, right? It's more paperwork and really just trying to, disillusion you and demotivate you from continuing to fight the good fight, right? That's why these suspensions are being implemented. That's why students in SOAS, in UCL, that's why they're issuing these court orders, right? To scare you out of, hopefully, inshallah, a long life of activism, right? So that's definitely one thing that's I guess been playing a lot on my mind, seeing as 7 of our students were suspended at UCL, 7 of our fellow campus. 6 of the suspensions have been lifted, thankfully, so they've come to their senses. But we do still have one more student who's going through an appeals process, and they're making it very difficult for her, right? They're putting a lot of pressure on a very bright, smart young girl who has an amazing future ahead of her. So it just to, I guess, maybe shed some light on the enemies that we're fighting. What else? I guess moving from there is probably just talking about the student kind of, or rather student encampment solidarity, right? Inter-campus solidarity. I feel like UCL and SOAS have quite a cool, solid link, but I really do see more ground to be covered in that direction. Again, in contrast to the US is massive, right? We had a couple of Berkeley students and a professor come down earlier this week, and he was telling me the distance between universities is half an hour drives. It's difficult to facilitate that kind of maybe organizing an event, or logistically there's no travel infrastructure. They don't have railways in the US, right? We have all of this available to us. This is also a part of our privilege, right? So we also need to recognize that and use that and really link up, right, across universities. That's how we keep this momentum going, right? And it leads on to my next point. It's like, where does this momentum go? Where does this inertia go, this energy? You know, we can't let it just kind of dissipate into thin air after, you know, we're not going to be here forever. The encampments aren't going to be open for 3-4 years, right? Eventually they're going to close. Eventually there's going to be a ceasefire, right? But we all know the fight, the journey doesn't stop there, right? So where do we take that? Because there's a lot of energy. It's there. We just need to, you know, figure out where we're gonna take it, you know? And recognizing that it's there is the first step, right? And yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess I could freestyle. That's basically what I was gonna say. I mean, to be honest, I'm just very proud of how far the movement has come. You know, I remember when I was in my undergrad studying here as well. It was a lot harder, you know, not to say that it isn't difficult for the students now, but an encampment when I was doing my undergrad in 2016, 2017, it wouldn't have been possible, you know. And now I'm, you know, taking a leap, let's say, but even if the genocide had kicked off back then, again, I genuinely don't think it would have been possible to hold on for this long. Just the era that we were in, on this, yeah, maybe I'm getting a bit too, but yeah, I would just say that it just inspires me, you know, I feel like such an uncle now that I'm back and I'm just seeing you know, the young, energetic students, all the freshers, getting involved and having so much initiative and passion for the cause, you know, and it lights a fire under my ass as well. So and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. So yeah, thank you for coming to my uni, our uni. Please feel free to pass by the encampment. We're all friendly. We all just want to chat. The more the merrier. The administration's trying to make it out like we don't have numbers, but clearly it's the contrary. And yeah, again, thanks for putting up, guys.
Mariam, who's been organising with Warwick Stands with Palestine and Oxford Action for Palestine.
Okay, hi everyone. Can everyone hear me? I'll introduce myself. I'm born and bred in Oxfordshire, and I've been helping with the Oxford encampment, and prior to that with the Oxford Action in general. And I'm a Warwick student. I can proudly say I have a sociology degree now, and I've been organising with the Warwick encampment as well. So I want to talk a bit about both encampments, but I'm going to talk a bit about the Oxford encampment. Do people know much about what's happening in Oxford? What's the situation? I'm going to start by talking about the Oxford encampment, which started just over a month ago. So I feel like we have a different yet similar battle in Oxford. So, as you know, Oxford University occupies nearly all of the buildings in the city. It has historically viciously gentrified, colonially gentrified a lot of the Oxford city centre. So no local people live within the Oxford city centre, it's just students, and all the local people have been pushed out to the outskirts of Oxford. So my mission at the encampment has been to bind local people and students in a collective solidarity for Palestine. So for a lot of our encampment, it has mostly just been students. And students do have a level of privilege in terms of how much time they can give to the encampment, how much time they can give to the cause, in comparison to local people who are working. So for me, the camp has not only been a place of resistance, but it's been a place where we can reimagine a different world. So the camp for me has been a place where we can reclaim the land and reclaim the land that the university has taken from us, and also bridge the gap between students and local people that the university has been viciously propagating. So with the camp, we've had a lot of solidarity days between the community and between the local people. So we've worked with the Sudanese community, We've worked a lot with the South Asian diaspora, which is from Kashmir, which is where I'm from, which is occupied at the moment. And we've managed to start chipping away at that divide between the local people and the students. And I think it's important to remember that the student movement is amazing and it has sparked something beautiful, but at the end of the day, the students are one fragment of a wider movement. And in my world, we have a movement and we have different sections of that movement, and the students make up that movement. Because I think the problem in Oxford we have is that Oxford students are put on a pedestal and they're treated as better because they're Oxford students and they're so amazing. And I do have a personal bias against Oxford students, being an Oxford local person. And I've been trying to chip away at that mentality that somehow being an Oxford student makes you better than someone else. Through the camp, we've been able to establish a lot of community initiatives. And something that will sustain the camp for the future. So I don't know if you guys know, we had a memorial garden at our first encampment outside the Pitts River Museum that was viciously bulldozed by the university admin, ransacked everything we had made, all the work that all the local groups and the students had done was just toppled over. And at the moment we are trying to re-establish the memorial in various community gardens in Oxford. Okay, I'm going to move on to the Warwick encampment because too much to talk. So Warwick itself has a history of resistance against the status quo, and I'm so proud that I go to Warwick University where there's a long history of resistance. I'm sure you guys know about the Red Strikes at Warwick as well. So in a similar way, I think universities try to purport an idea of divide and rule. They'll divide and rule the townspeople and the students. And in a similar fashion, it's happened at Warwick too, where not only is there a divide, but I think education has turned into a profiteering game where students are a commodity, something to extract value from, where students are living off barely anything and the universities are flooding cash into projects that work like WMG, Rolls-Royce, BA Systems. And in itself, I think universities are a site of reproducing capitalism, and we need to remember that when we are challenging these institutions. Oxford men made the Balfour Declaration. You know what I mean. Yeah, and I just want to end on the fact that these encampments are our starting point. We're moving away from, PALSOCs and Friends of Palestine, and we're moving into radical resistance now, and we're moving into taking direct action and challenging the status quo. That's what I want to leave you guys with.
Is Haya, who is coming here from the SOAS Liberated Zone for Gaza just next door.
Is this on? Okay, it's fine. Hi everyone. So it's really great to be speaking on this panel with comrades from other universities. I think we've seen how strong the student movement is. It hasn't been this big since other struggles we've seen, like Vietnam in the 60s and apartheid, South Africa. And I think it's a testament to the strength of the students. These encampments have been going on for so long, and we need to recognize the importance of building relationships and unity with other universities. And despite the fact that there have been encampments evicted, the students have won. The students will continue to win, and the only thing we got out of the encampments being evicted is that we know that management are intimidated and they're threatened by the students, and I think it's incredible for how long they've gone on. So, as my comrade mentioned, it's day 62 of the SOAS encampment, and out something small that was written in order to show you the complicity of SOAS in the ongoing genocide in Gaza. So, based on FOI requests, SOAS is currently complicit with Israeli war crimes, with investments in companies, namely Microsoft, Samsung, Sony, Albemarle, which invests in producing white phosphorus, of over £2.3 million. Additionally, SOAS began a new 5-year contract with Haifa University of at least £4.7 million starting in the academic year of 2020-2021. And this partnership is part of the Year Abroad program for students studying modern Hebrew. And this university is built on colonized Palestinian Mount Carmel, which in 1948 saw its population ethnically cleansed from 61,000 to less than 4,000. Haifa University also secured a tender to organize higher education courses for the IOF and provide specific programs designed for military officers. And student soldiers on campus are armed and trained in specific military intelligence, contributing to the securitization of Palestinians, allowing soldiers to fulfill their duties towards the occupation whilst obtaining a university degree. So management are obviously supporting this, and all we've gotten out of management are useless negotiations, which we have pulled out of because they were in bad faith. And if we want negotiations, we set the terms for these negotiations in order to make them management have said to us over email. So the first one is that we are undemocratic and they have called us all anarchist populists. The second thing is the use of dehumanizing language when talking about the genocide. They refuse to call it what it is. It's crystal clear that it's a genocide, but they use words like tragedy to describe what's going on, or Gaza-Israel war. It's not a war, it's not a conflict, it's a clear genocide, occupation, and modern-day settler colonialism at its highest level. It's happening now. So, a bunch of us have received disciplinary, myself and my comrade who is chairing have received formal investigations simply for the actions and escalations we have been, that have been happening across campus. One of them was literally for flyering and doing a flyer drop inside the library, which is ridiculous. Another is because we targeted Adam Habib as he was walking from building to building. I mean, how repressive do you have to be that you can't even hold the director of the university accountable? He carries blood on his hands, and we know this through his ties with genocide. The worst one is the fact that they're trying to expel Abel, a comrade of ours, from the university. They have falsely accused him of abuse, misconduct, which is not true, because actually security were the ones who choked Abel, security were the ones who attacked people from our camp in racially targeted attacks simply for protesting on the steps, and security were the ones who were provoking the students, filming us with their personal phones, and when they were confronted about it, they retaliated in a violent manner. It's entirely shameful that SOAS, it's not even that big of a campus in comparison to other unis, is being treated as a prison. They hire external security to try to keep us in line, when we know that management are the ones who are the real threats, not the students. The students are the ones speaking up against genocide. They're speaking up about settler colonialism happening in Palestine, because we know that it's our duty to decolonize our curriculums. It's completely unjust that we sit in lectures, we sit in classrooms where they talk about 1492, Christopher Columbus and the white colonizers, but they will never ever use that same logic now to describe what's happening now. And we've seen that we've seen through news outlets that since this is the largest land theft in the West Bank by the Zionist entity. This hasn't happened in 30 years, and there's 6,000 new settlements that they're trying to build. When we say free Palestine, we mean from the river to the sea. We're not just talking about the West Bank, we're not just talking about Gaza, we're talking about every inch of that land. We're talking about Akka, my comrades refuse to sit in those lectures and be given readings about Frantz Fanon, about Edward Said, about concerning violence, and they're telling us we don't have a right to resist. No, Palestinians do have a right to resist, and the resistance will continue and live on until Palestine is free from the river to the sea. And we've seen the gains and the wins we've seen from them. to involve the wider community, because us as students, you guys are our backbone. The wider community are our backbone. Your support is very, very appreciated, and the way we politicize students and each other is from not only learning from other generations, but working together in skill sharing, in building relationships. And it's really important to show up to encampments, show up to our teach-outs, show up to our rallies, because we need to create a domino effect where even if one person is politicized, they can politicize the next one and the next one, until we build up generations and generations who will speak up about the truth about what's happening in Palestine. Because education is the most important tool, and it's really fundamental in forwarding the struggle. And it's really great to see all of you, and thank you so much for your support. And the Student Intifada looks on.
Our last speaker is Samira with Goldsmiths for Palestine and a member of the Socialist Workers Party.
People might have seen that I was on my phone a lot. I wasn't trying to be rude, I wasn't trying to listen to speakers. It's because right now as we speak there are anti-racists and members of the Socialist Workers Party who are disrupting Nigel Farage in Westminster. He's going to get opposition from the minute that he's in. Okay, so, but what I actually want to start with is by talking about, is by saying that I think it is clear for everyone here that Israel is not letting up. Israel is it does not show that it is stopping. You know, we stand 9 months into Israel's genocide. We have seen 40,000 Palestinians being killed. We see 20,000 children lost under the rubble. And we witness horror after horror, you know, live streamed around the globe for us to see. And we also know that they're not stopping because they say it themselves, don't they? They don't hide it. Netanyahu has declared that there will be no permanent ceasefire. We know what Israel is intent on. It's total destruction and murder, and there's no question of their genocidal aims. And it's not just about Gaza, it's like Haya said, you know, it's about the whole of Palestine. It's about the Palestinians shot dead by the IDF in the West Bank. It's about the settler violence. It's about more and more of Palestine's land being taken. And Smotrich just said it last week and made it clear again. He said that for every country that recognises Palestine, another settlement will be built. And this is the logic of settler colonialism. But that is not the whole picture, is it? You know, clearly we have seen a massive movement for Palestine reaching every corner of the globe and shaking up every layer of politics. And you know, I think we've seen this international student movement, which we're all a part of, you know, sparked a lot by the revolts that we've seen on US campuses. So now I'm a student at Goldsmiths. I've actually hopefully just finished if I pass my degree. But I do want to say at this point that we did actually go into occupation before we saw the explosion on US campuses. But you know, the US encampments were particularly a moment, weren't they? And they presented a massive leap forward for the whole Palestine movement, and they offered the way forward for us here as well. You know, they upped the stakes, didn't they? And at Goldsmiths, we took inspiration from the students in the US. We took their lead and we escalated our own action. And then, since then, we've witnessed the encampments all around Britain since, and the encampments are still holding strong, you know, on this very university and so on. And we've seen them all around the world as well. You know, students have been shutting down their campuses in the name of Palestine. And that's something that we've all proudly been a part of, and rightfully so. You know, it's disgusting that our universities are complicit in genocide, and as students we should stop at nothing to get the blood of Palestinians off of our campuses. So now at Goldsmiths there's been 3 occupations since October the 7th, and only through those occupations did we actually force our management to come and meet with us. Did we actually get them to listen to what the vast majority of students at Goldsmiths actually think about Palestine and our university's complicity with it. And we got them to eventually grant us concessions on every single one of our demands and went into that first. Time and time again that we have to take this radical action. You know, no one is going to grant us the wins that we need for Palestine, and the radical action is the only way that we can win. And I think just about the student movement as well, it's not just being transformative in terms of its militant action and its demands and the gains that we've got, but it's, you know, and bringing, you know, the strength of the Palestine movement onto our campuses. It's also been a crash course for a whole layer of students like me who have had the lesson on Palestine and imperialism and so on. You know, how many students who have been a part of this movement now see the only solution that we'll accept is a one state for Palestine? This is the way we're going to get Palestinian liberation. right to resist in whichever form that they choose. How many students, are confident to argue that, Israel is a settler colonial state, is an apartheid state, and so on? And and also that they argue that we have to be taking the fight against our own governments, which either Tory or Labour are proven to fund and support Israel to the hilt, because this is about their imperial interests. Okay, but I want to say now, where do we go from here? Because hopefully that is why people are here to listen to the encampments, but they also want, we need to know where we're going next. But I think first of all we need to say that we're going to send a message to Sir Keir Starmer and the Labour Party that we are fighting him today and the whole Labour Party on the question of Palestine. There will be no honeymoon period for a party and a government that supports genocide. Campuses running. We need to say that there will be no return to normal for our institutions come the new term. We need to think about how we are escalating action again and shutting our campuses right back down. Now, the Palestine movement as a whole is in no way going away. Hopefully we'll all be on what is a huge Palestine demonstration tomorrow in central London together. But I think there is a challenge and things to talk about. I think we need to be serious about how we are building the student movement back up after the break of summer. Well, not the break for the movement, but the break of our campuses. But we cannot just rely. I think we cannot just rely on the same students and the same brilliant students that have come through to carry forward the fight. We actually need to be thinking about how we are drawing in mass numbers on our campuses. We need to be thinking that we're building outwards as much as possible, and there are yet more people to meet. And we shouldn't be pessimistic about any of this, I think. We have to set our sights high. And I don't think that any of this is just a fantasy. We know that there is a massive appetite for solidarity for Palestine, for protesting for Palestine, and taking militant action. But I think we need to think about how we relate to that majority of students who support Palestine that we know are on our campuses and bring them into the fight. And I think that we need both mass and militant action, and I think this is actually how we do fight back against repression. It's not by getting smaller, it's by getting bigger, and if they want to attack our rights to protest, so the only way that we can push back on that is by protesting harder and bigger. So, just to end, because I know I've got not a lot of time, I just want to talk about the context in which we're having this meeting as well, not just the Palestine movement, but obviously the election that we've seen. And I think that today there might be a narrative that, Britain is so right-wing, they all vote for Farage, they've got 4 Reform MPs, or everyone loves Starmer, and so on. I mean, first of all, it's clear that there is no appetite for Starmer. He won with, very little votes and very little enthusiasm. And the Labour Party as a whole, and as well, the 4 Reform seats are actually outnumbered by 5 independent candidates. People around the country that actually voted for people who stood up for Palestine this election. And we have also seen that around the country, on every campus, there are students who are willing to fight against genocide, who are willing to fight against apartheid and racism, and they're willing to take the most radical action to do so. And I think it's clear that the Palestine movement has changed everything. It is the strength of our movement that got rid of Suella Braverman, and now the Tories are in the dirt. But we have to be confident that our movement can unseat every single rotten genocide supporter who runs this country. Okay, so just to end. I think this is the vision of a militant movement that fights tooth and nail for Palestinian liberation, whether under a Labour or Tory government. But this is also a vision of a movement that needs to fight on every single issue. Now is the time to fight back not just against the racism that is at the heart of the Israeli state, but the racism that we witness here in Britain as well. Because with Starmer in power, we know that nothing will change for Palestine. We know that Labour is intent on continuing to send arms to Israel, covering up for their crime, and so on. Okay, but I know that Labour doesn't just offer Labour doesn't just offer no hope for the Palestine movement, offers no hope for ordinary people as well. And this is a dangerous thing we need to talk about. This is where the far right can begin to breed. And that is why we need the movement, the student movement itself as well, to take on the wider questions, not just fighting for Palestine, but against all the rotten ills of our society, and particularly the threat of racism and the far right.
To the panel for all their brilliant work with the encampment. My questions are basically about how I can utilise your skills and your knowledge of my university. So for context, I'm a student at Strathclyde University at Glasgow, and if anyone knows Strathclyde University, it has a very apolitical university body. Like, there's not really much history on student movements and student protests in our uni like the University of Glasgow. Is we have a very small number of people that are willing to do the encampment, and I'm meaning like less than 10 people. And I'm just wondering, how do we build up on numbers with an apolitical university body?
I have a question of strategy, and also I want to say something that I thought was one of the best things that has come out of the encampment. So coming out of the encampment, we have essentially managed to unify all of the different local groups or activist groups in the orbit of the University of Bristol, which is a picture on the map, by the way. The taken to do this has been by focusing first on the encampment itself, organising it for the purpose of disrupting the university and creating an open space for radical discourse. And by prioritising the camp in the immediate sense over the wide range of different political groups involved has proven to be, at least at Bristol, the best strategy to overcome the usual alienation that actions on our campus seem to have been characterised by. So I think it's just really good that all these groups have come together. And like 2 years ago, I would have thought there's no way that the anarchists would have been working with us. So a question of strategy as well. I think we've built something amazing with these encampments, but my question is, how do we keep this going? How do we keep organising with all these different groups going forwards in the future?
I'm Eva, I'm from Edinburgh, and I was at the Edinburgh encampment for a while. As you might know, the Edinburgh encampment came to a close, as you might not know it, and it didn't come to a close because of any eviction notices. It came to a close out of a choice of a particular, like a majority within the group. As a member of the SWP, I argued that, and a lot of other members argued that this was a bad decision, and unfortunately, it was a bit of a bad decision. It's bad to be right sometimes, because what you saw was that the encampment was a centre for activity in the city and in the country, in the entirety of Scotland. It completely re-energised the Palestine movement in the city that had been sort of slowly but surely trickling down, and it just completely engaged it again. And my question is a question about strategy, or actually it's a question with an answer. But my question is, how do we go forward now that there's clearly there was an upswing, and then people decided to stop the camp from going on, and it kind of, in my opinion, showed the university that they could just wait us out. They could just sort of, not engage with us in bad faith, obviously pretend to be negotiating, pretend to be forming working groups, but in fact just wait us out through sort of this considered civil dialogue. And what I think it showed as well is that you cannot trust an institution that makes profit out their students. Like, it's a ridiculous statement to make in this room, I know, but while you are in the groups with other students and other students from other political traditions, you find that you have to have this debate quite often, that the act of change is not going to come from an institution that sees you for money. The act of change is going to come from your action and your disruption and your continual radical activity. So I wanted to know as well, like, since this is so clear, like, uniting students and uniting workers and uniting the staff, which in my opinion is something that didn't quite happen well enough in Edinburgh. We had solidarity, but we didn't have resistance. Thank you. We had solidarity with staff, we didn't have resistance alongside staff. How can we continue forward and make sure that it actually succeeds? Because the University of Edinburgh, at least in Scotland, it's the university that has most money invested in companies complicit in genocide. It invests 56 million. So when I heard 2.3 over there, I was like, oh, that's we're doing a lot worse, man. So we got to stop it, and I think it's a question of strategy, but it's also a question of how do you engage with other political groups, people who have different traditions to you, when there is a clear answer, and that clear answer is you need mass action, not like not relying on the university for their good faith.
Hello, I'm Sumin from South Korea. I'm in a worker solidarity student group. It's international socialist group in South Korea. We are building a Palestine solidarity movement in Korea for 9 months. We do weekly protests every Saturday, except only once, the Lunar New Year. And the encampment also launched by Columbia University students landed in South Korea as well. There were full campus encampment to raise awareness and asking the school authority to cut ties with Israel. And that was very much supported by students and outside campus community as well. So it was indeed a global movement. I was very proud that we had solidarity movement 8,000 kilometers from Gaza, and also South Korea is part of ally to US. So it's really important to show our solidarity to people in Gaza. We are not supporting the government complicit to that. Yeah. And as an international socialist group member, we've always supported justice for Palestine and also understood the importance of supporting national liberation movement, which can challenge the existing imperialist system based on Marx and Lenin's idea. But I never imagined myself building a movement for it in South Korea, because Palestine issue was never a major political issue in South Korea. But because of the revolutionary ideas and theory and tradition we discussed, we could call an action right after the October 7 happened without any hesitation. Arming ourselves with ideas and theory was very necessary for building effective movement, being steadfast as well. And second, the mobilization did not just come from out of nowhere. We started as a few hundred people, but this month, 2,000 people joined the national protest for Palestine for the first time in our history. I know it's relatively small. The potential of a consistent grassroots movement can make a change. People who join the street protest and they understand the meaning of our movement, and then what we say is we ask them to, let's spread it. You want to change the world, you become a part of it, and you fight, and we fight together. We are not saying that, vote for us, we make change, or vote for people in power, they can make change. No, we say, you and me, we fight together, and I think that is what socialists need to do. We believe socialism from below, and socialism is a self-emancipation, not awaiting change from other person. So at the end, the last point. So to build this movement, we contacted with many migrant people in Korea. They became very important part in this movement, and they joined the protest, and they feel they are liberated because migrant workers' condition is not really good. So, yeah, I hope that this in this movement they gain confidence, and we can build solidarity later on.
My name's Yasmin, and I'm here from the Manchester Camp of Resistance for Palestine. I don't want to bore you with all of our demands and stuff. I just wanted to talk about how Manchester's camp was successful, and that it didn't come without huge repression from the university or the police. Like all the others, we were influenced by America and hoped that we would not face the sheer amount of force that they did. But within our university, despite the huge size of our camp, our senior management ignored us every day, but we still grew. We gathered with the trade unions and the workplaces, and of course the community really aided in this. But the silence from the university meant that we had to up our actions. So we decided to occupy the Whitworth building, which is one of the oldest Grade 2 listed buildings in our university. And it was actually graffitied with red paint by one of our comrades, which is funny. Unfortunately, the police got called on us, and we faced a big challenge. But because of the huge support that we got from our movement, and the police were trying to barricade us in with our hall, 3 tactical aid units were called. We won, and we beat the Great Manchester Police. This shows the huge support that the community did. They pushed them away, and it shows that solidarity is really key. Unlike SOAS and UCL, our camp had to close. But the closure of our camp was by no means an end. You know, as Samira said, this is only the beginning. We will continue to build this movement and target every complicit company until this genocide is over and until Palestine is free. We ended our camp with the affirmation of our return next semester in September, and we will be back. We will come back stronger and more motivated than ever. But as long as Israel occupation and genocide of Gaza continues, we will continue to draw inspiration and resilience of the Palestinians and fight against all the complicit institutions and universities here in Britain once and for all.
Not very energetic, are we? Hello, everyone! Hello! Alright, cool. So I am from Swansea, and I'm heavily involved in the South Wales movement for Palestine. For those who don't know about Swansea's encampment, there was pretty much only 7 to 14 students. The university were very reluctant to actually negotiate or to do anything until they went on hunger strike. They went on hunger strike, the university have disclosed, they've divested, and they've granted all of the students free work. Quite involved in the Cardiff University encampment as well. I was there a couple of days ago with them. They just had a meeting with the university. 2 weeks ago, the university said that these list of demands, we're going to ignore them, but you have to be out before the open day, which is today, and the camp is welcoming people with leaflets, flyers, and coffee. When they realized that the students were not going to leave, they had a meeting with them 2 days ago, and the university now have pretty much committed to 3 or 4 of the 6 demands, and they said to them, can you leave by Monday, which is after tomorrow, or in 3 days. The students are adamant, and they said, we're not leaving until we get everything in writing, that we get these commitments in writing, and if you do not see these commitments through, then we're going to come back. Even if we leave, don't think that you're going to get rid of us. So it's not really a question, it's just amazing what the students are doing. It's taken the movement up. Oh, and there's another thing. Of those students in Cardiff, and some of the Swansea ones, I don't know if any of you have heard of the Cardiff 19. It was going around from the beginning of the month. So we are 2 of the Cardiff 19 who were arrested on the 3rd of June for peacefully protesting for Palestine. 7 students were arrested as well, and those students were sent letters from the university to threaten them with disciplinary action. We were on really stringent bail conditions, which means we haven't been able to go legally to a protest for the last month. But yesterday we got the phone call and our bail conditions are removed and we're just under investigation. As a London student encampments, if you could help with sharing the campaign that we've got and the petition that we've got, which is to defend the right to protest and to take action against South Wales Police, to support your fellow students in Cardiff that have been victimised, and majority of them people of colour who were brutally attacked by the police on the day of the arrest. Free Palestine, tennis backwards.
I'm from the Queen Mary encampment for Palestine down in We've been going for about 55 days now. We've been blessed by the kind of overwhelming support of working class people in Tower Hamlets who see our fight very much as their fight, whether it's over Palestine or over all the other the policing, the poverty, all those other abuses that they face. We've been in kind of an interesting position recently. We were taken to court around the 6th of June, and we succeeded in getting an adjournment around that possession order, but we're going to be sort of back on July 10th, and that's kind of posed some interesting political questions, mainly around sort of how do we escalate without sort of just immediately blowing up the camp, and so there's been kind of discussions about that and quite a caution about that, and so I was interested as well as what people kind of here think about that sort of dilemma. And also, just like the comrade over there, I also just wanted to talk a little bit about something that we've got going. We've got a fundraiser just to help pay for our legal fees that I've been asked just to promote here. So if you just search on Chuffed, which is CHUFFED, QMUR, Action 4, number 4, PAL, you should find it just on the top of Google. Thank you very much.
I'm Benji, I'm from the Leeds encampment. first of all, I'd like to thank SOAS for sending us your head of security. He's going to be starting in Leeds. Which, by the sounds of it, it's not good news, actually, from what you were saying earlier on. But really, what I want to talk about is the big question that's going on here, and that is, where do we go from here? And I think the first step is actually to look to the past, and to look at the events of 1968 and the fallout after that. I think that when we look at what happened in Paris, where students and young workers took the streets and were eventually defeated, but not after sparking a massive trade union movement, we see the first thing that we need to learn from this, and that is that we have to involve the organised working class where possible. Another thing that we saw in 1968 was that it wasn't just in Paris. It spread across the globe, and for many years afterwards, we saw a continuation of the movement. In Leeds in 1968, the Parkinson's building was occupied by 4,000 people, and there was more occupations. An occupation in Warwick in 1970. There's an occupation of Polytechnic in 72 in Leeds. And I think what we need to be measuring ourselves against is how are we going to achieve this again in 2024. And that is obviously a harder question to answer than just what we can do in this meeting. But I think what we need to look at is what we've got at the moment, and that is a very strong, radical student movement. And I'd like to see the student movement really get involved in the local community a lot more and get involved with the workers. And I'd like to see them bring the radical edge that we're seeing in the student encampments on the university encampments just across the city and across the country.
My name's Roddy, I'm from Imperial College, where I've been supporting an encampment which just finished. I want to say something a bit different because I'm actually the branch secretary of the University and College Union at Imperial College, and we had failed to get Palestine discussed as a trade union for many, many weeks actually. And so some of us, when the 7th of October happened, we immediately started to hold workplace days of action. So that, to be honest with you, meant just 2 or 3 people, or 5 or 6 people, and then 20 people, building up really, really slowly. And each week we had a few more students involved. And then really people started to get a bit of confidence for the big massive demonstrations. Because the thing is that doing this in your own workplace is much harder than in a street with 2 million people or 200,000 people. It's much, much harder. So what happened when the encampment exploded? We set up a WhatsApp group. The WhatsApp group had about 40 or 50 people on it, to be honest with you, until probably March. Then we got to about 300 people with some of the bigger rallies that started to happen. And then the encampment happened, and then we get 750 people in the WhatsApp group in Imperial, right? The thing about that is there's now lots of staff involved, and I have found allies because of the encampment, and because staff were constantly meeting people who were putting them to shame because they were taking the fight to management that we were not succeeding in doing. And therefore what's actually happened is I've been able to recruit people who are staff members who've got involved around Palestine, never thought trade unions were in the least relevant or interesting, and now actually have joined the trade union and are part of my branch and have helped me with the Palestine motion. As far as I'm concerned, from my other side of the fence, if you like, is that the students have then brought Palestine into my trade union, and what we need to do is bring Palestine into the trade union. That's not the question of Palestine, because the Trade Unions Congress this year supported more defence spending, arms spending, and what that means is more war and death in Israel, and therefore we need to build fighting trade unions, we need to build fighting universities, we need to reclaim our universities for the exams factories that they are at the moment and turn them into genuine units of production of genuine critical knowledge and critical thinking. That's what the encampments have done, and that's what we need to do as revolutionaries. We need a revolutionary organisation in the unions and inside the university, students and staff. We need student and staff solidarity, and that's when the encampments will start to help lots of us see as possible as staff and the students across the UK.
I'm Natalie. I'm from the University of Melbourne encampment in I want to speak to the fact that people have already spoken to, the importance of solidarity between the students and the staff, students and the workers. In our encampment, when it first began, we started with like 4 tents. We did lecture bashes, we did leafletting, we did chalking, we held lectures at the encampment to be able to engage with students on campus, with staff on campus. Doing lecture bashes, they were directed towards students and staff. Many of the staff were really keen for us to come in. It was a two-way street. They both learned from what we were saying. They both wanted to participate in what we were doing. Ultimately, this encouraged them to integrate it within their classrooms, and they also brought their classrooms to the encampment. Staff were subjected to repression. They received mass emails from the university threatening them not to attend our rallies. It was clear the university was scared about the unity between the students and the staff. We continued to hold rallies and we built towards that. And then on the anniversary of the Nakba, we held a massive rally. We walked it into a building formerly known as Arts West. We renamed it Mahmoud's Hall and we occupied that building for a week. Hours of occupying the building, we had our Vice Chancellor come down and threaten us with police repression and academic disciplinary actions. In spite of that, we held a picket, we picketed across the entire building, staff picketed for us, they learned how to marshal on the day, they picketed into the night, we had students and staff sitting in a circle, willing to get arrested, people who had not been at the encampment. They saw this outward-facing movement and they wanted to join, they felt compelled to join, and that's why that was able to happen. We held that for a week, we had rallies every single night. We mobilised staff, we mobilised the unions, we had the NTEU, which is our National Tertiary Education Union, come in. They held a rally for us. We had trade unions come in every single night. We had a roster of staff willing to come in the middle of the night in case the police were to come and smash us, which is incredible. And I think it's really, really evident of the fact that we need the student movement, the student intifada is incredible in itself, but we need to involve staff, we need to involve our unionists, we need to involve workers, and it's clear that the staff and the students united will not be defeated.
Yeah, thank you so much. Firstly, I want to say how amazing it is to hear from people from across the world fighting back for Palestine in their campuses. I feel like this whole room has been a student panel today, hearing from people from across the country and from across the world. So thank you to everyone that's spoken. I want to say pretty plainly that this Sunday is going to mark 9 months of the genocide, and it's also the mark of as we said, the new we have the new Labour government coming in, and we have to let them know that we're not going to allow this genocide to last a minute longer at all. We have to fight them today, and we have to fight them now, and make sure that the genocide stops. I think we can all understand the way that the Palestine movement has electrified politics over the last 9 months. It's completely changed politics in this country, completely. I mean, not only did it start with Suella Braverman getting toppled because a million of us marched on the streets, but now a whole host of Tory MPs have been completely wiped away. More than that, we see no less than 5 pro-Palestine MPs being elected into Parliament, which shows just how much the Palestine movement has shaken politics in this country, so much that there's people going out to vote and challenge the Labour Party on their dreadful position on genocide in Gaza. And I want to say that the role of the student movement has been one which has acted as a complete detonator in this movement. If it wasn't for the student movement, I don't know where we would be in the movement for Palestine in this country and certainly around the world. I remember when the first occupation started in Goldsmith, it swept across the country, and then when the first encampment started in Colombia, it spread across the world. And we, as Emma was saying, it completely detonated a much wider layer of, and tapped into a much wider layer of anger in society. But I would like to argue, but I don't think it's detonated enough. I don't think the student movement has gone far enough. I think we have to set our heights so much higher. In Edinburgh, there's been chants I'm a student at Edinburgh, there's been chants saying that, Peter Masterson, who's our Vice Chancellor, saying, Peter Masterson, come September, all the students will remember. And I think we've all reiterated that today. We need to make our universities completely ungovernable come the new term, and I think we all have to be a part of that. what people say about integrating the working class movements in local cities and calling for mass action is a massive part of that, and I want to see everyone involved in that come this September. So thank you very much.
I feel like the general sentiment was that, where do we go from here? Well, what's the next steps, right? Like, we have all this energy, I mentioned it in the beginning, we have all this energy, where are we taking it? And I think we all know on the inside it's action, right? Like, it's collective action. But on an individual level, I encourage you to just have maybe a deeper think about, and I'm sure you guys are already doing stuff, right? But in addressing this question, think about what skills you have, right? Think about what networks that you've built up over your time in collective action. Think about it very deeply, and try and draw associations in terms of like where you can support, because obviously you can see a lot of students are facing court orders from the universities. Do you have any lawyer friends? Reach out to the encampments, see if you can offer any lawyer friends to help them out, or maybe students are facing suspensions. Maybe offer your support in terms of if you're part of like an organization or a school or a structure, I guess leverage that, but on top of that, what you can offer to the cause isn't exclusive to your skills and your network, right? Like the young man in the back there was speaking about, I appreciate how he started it, right? He centered it on Palestine. That's why we're here. We're here for Gaza. We're here for not just Gaza, but there's a lot going on in the world. But principally, Palestine almost feels like an umbrella. It's like a symbolic umbrella of resistance these days, And I feel like that's why everyone identifies with it so much. And I look across the audience and I see just like the most, like beautiful crowd of people. And yeah, and just on that point, right? Like the young man was saying, detonator. And me, I'm Palestinian, right? So that kind of like made me anxious a little bit. Honestly, it goes to show that, and I'm sure you didn't do it intentionally, right? Like, but that's a part of your privilege that you can use, right? You can say that stuff. Maybe if I say that, I'm gonna get a flipping, disciplinary saying, oh, you were using inflammatory language. So just think about what privilege you have, your time, your skills, your network, and so on. And yeah.
Just a quick shout out. My comrades at Oxford have said we have an eviction notice fed by the uni, so 7th of July our camp is being brutally shut down. We know how Oxford Uni behave, they will come in and bulldoze us. So if you can head down to our camp, support. We have a massive community day going on tomorrow. If you can support, that would be great. Or spread the word, follow our Instagram, all of that good stuff. I'm just going to answer the question that I think a comrade at the back spoke about, how to work with different groups. And I'm sure in these pockets that everyone's spoken about, there's so much already going on in these cities. I can speak for Oxford, and I'm sure my Oxford comrades will agree. There's so much already going on in Oxford prior to October 7th. I've been organising since I was 15. There's so much going on, and you can tap into that. You can make connections, you can make coalitions with different groups. We worked with so many different communities and brought them in. Whenever we had leftover food, we would donate it to a local mutual aid group. There's these connections you can make that can make camp permanent. It's just you need to go out and do the work to make those connections and to not alienate yourself as a student-only organisation. And I think that's the best way to kind of make those links. What was that? And I just wanted to talk about what the comrade there said about Manchester. So Manchester got it right. They have been working with students and local people so well. I went there when the Whitworth Hall was happening and when the police came, and I remember everyone just rallying together, whoever you were, and we were saying, fuck you to the police. And how they've managed to work together to do that, because that's just amazing. yeah, just to sum up, tap into your local community, see what's going on, and see what routes you can make, because I'm sure they would be more than willing to work with you.
The most essential thing is to build relationships. If you want to start up like a group or even an encampment, is at SOAS we literally had a bunch of students from a bunch of different societies just come together and be like, okay, we're going to do the encampment now. It's building one-on-one relationships, and that can feed into other societies and building relationships with societies that it doesn't also necessarily have to be only the Palestine society, but you can build up relationships with other ones. There's, for example, like so many from so many different struggles, and that's how you build up a base. And one of the first things we did as a Palestine society is call for an open meeting, and through that, people do come, people have questions, they have things they want to ask about how they can be involved and kind of how they can find out more about what's going on. So I'd say building relationships is the most key thing, even if it's one-on-one, and if you have a group of friends, just go for it, honestly. Yeah, and taking action, I mean, that's the most important thing. We've been doing that all year long. I mean, people have shut down arms factories, EAD systems. There have been not just the national marches, but multiple other ones that have been spontaneous, and they've been great. I mean, we've shut the streets of London down so many times. And yeah, I think also building relationships with people from other countries as well. Like when we have people coming from Canada, from South Korea, all of that coming to the encampment and kind of communicating with them, I think it's incredible, and it shows the impact and power of not just us as students, but as a global community fighting for Palestinian liberation. And really important is to also, in terms of student organizing, is to, I'm going to say it, just radicalize the first years that come and utilize that opportunity, because they are the ones that are going to be staying there for years to come, and then they will be teaching the next generation of students. And just really quickly to end is, we know why we're here. Firstly and foremost, it's for the people of Gaza and for the people of Palestine. And when we walk onto campus, when we march on the streets of London, we need to remember that we are centering all of our martyrs, and that we will not do what the media do, where we become desensitized and use them as statistics. Each martyr had lives, they had ambitions, they had dreams, and we have the privilege of having a roof over our heads. We have the privilege of studying to get our degrees, so we need to use that privilege for good. We need to use our education to combat the system and to break the shackles of Western imperialism here in the heart of the West, and to connect all our struggles together. We connect the struggles in Kenya, in Sudan, in Congo, in the entirety of the Arab world, in South America. Everywhere we go, we connect all our struggles, and Palestine is the focal point. Palestine is the umbrella, and Palestinians will be the one to free us. And we fight alongside them, because we do not simply stand in solidarity with them. We are an extension of the struggle here in the West. Thank you.
I just want to start by talking about something that Mariam actually spoke about in her introduction, that our institutions uphold capitalism. I think this is right, and I think this is why we say that our institutions are actually complicit in Israel's genocide, because they're part of the system that creates the horrors in Palestine and so on. And I think that our encampments have served to be, a haven within, our neoliberal complicit institutions. They're a space of radical discussion and education that everyone has talked about. But I think that this can't just be what they are. I think they need to be more than that. Us in the encampments, we can't be looking inwards. We need to be actually looking outwards and looking at taking on our universities and taking on, the system as a whole, actually. And I just wanted to talk about the student intifada, because I think the first thing about intifada is that people have seen, and there might be people, well, I actually know there are people who have been arrested in this room for chatting about intifada, in an attempt of our rulers to criminalise what we can and can't say on Palestine marches. And they do this because they're scared, because it's a chant that's in Arabic, and they don't know what it means, and they think it means terrorism because they're racist. But actually, I think that our rulers should be terrified when they see thousands of people on the streets chanting talking about intifada, because what intifada actually means is uprising. Intifada means revolution, and that means what people have been talking about. That means people coming together, not just students in their campuses or students across different campuses, but that means actually students and workers and the massive power of the working class coming together and being united, and it means people coming together to break down the chains in our system. And this is the system that actually creates Israel in the first place. And I think that, I am, the people who have been putting on this festival, I'm a member of a revolutionary organisation. I think that our struggle has been a revolutionary one. But I think that people who are part of the movement and are talking about linking the struggles and taking the movement further and in a head-on collision with the system as a whole need to be part of what is a revolutionary network of students around Britain. And this isn't just students in encampments around Britain, this is students and people actually in every struggle around Britain and connecting those struggles, but crucially bringing revolutionary politics into the heart of it, because we want to actually get rid of the system as a whole. We want to free Palestine, but we want to free all of us in that process. So what I would say just to end is to join the revolutionary organisation today.